and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who, much like me, watched all kinds of high-octane soccer this weekend.
That is
high
true.
Stakes. High stakes is a better word, I think. Lots on the line. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. We got there. eventually.
I was processing all the soccer I've seen the last couple of days and sort of forgot your name.
That's good. That's the thing to be doing right when we begin the show, is thinking about all the games you've seen to remember if you get them all in.
So today's show, we're going to talk Manchester Derby. We saw that. MLS Cup. Liga MX's second leg of the final. Plus a nice little Premier League roundup. All to come on today's Total Soccer Show. Let's start in Manchester with the big game from this morning.
That makes sense.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. That's how we normally do things. You got any thumbs? So I guess we'll spoiler alert if you haven't sort of seen it. It finished Manchester City 2, Manchester United 1 at Old Trafford.
Yep. And I'm gonna say, just start us off with a general one of thumbs down, just to Romelu Lukaku, just for not having a very good day across the board.
It was even worse on second viewing, right?
It was.
So I think most people who've seen the game or seen the highlights will know that both of Man City's goals come from Lukaku not doing very well when defending set pieces.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one way to put it. I would say doing poorly. Yeah. And that's really it. It's basically both goals from Man City come from set pieces, as you said. The first one, Lukaku, I think, is trying to get ahead to. Instead, it sort of comes off his chest. It spills for an easy kind of tap-in there, is how I'm going to put that one.
David Silva sort of has to do some sort of acrobatic volleying to get that home.
It's an acrobatic finish, but it still is basically David Silva in on goal from 6 yards out with nobody in front of him except for David De Gea.
It's a Lukaku assist.
Yes,
put it that way.
And much more so for the second goal, which is basically free kick delivered. Lukaku winds up to just rip that ball clear and instead hits it right into his own player. Then it spills loose to be tapped in by Otamendi.
He does what all strikers should do, what they're told to do, which is when you strike the ball hard, keep it low.
I mean, yeah. I really do think, though,
he got his head over that ball.
He knows better than that, and I guess you could make the argument that he's not a center back or whatever, but I feel like you still know, just get a foot to it when the ball is delivered in with that amount of pace.
He got
just making like proper connection with the ball will get it clear. But he really does wind up like he's going to hit this power volley that he does not need to do.
All he had to do was lean back a little bit, get some lift on it. I mean, that ball would have sort of definitely landed possibly outside of the stadium.
I think so. But instead he hits it low. I think just really is focused on not making a mistake, and in focusing on making that contact and making sure he gets a foot to the ball, he hits it right into his own player. And the rebound is basically there for Otamendi to put in for 2-1 to Man City.
So I think it's technically Herrera's own assist, but he knows nothing about it, right? Because it's Lukaku firing it straight into him.
This is true.
I've got some sympathy for Lukaku on the first goal, I think. Or I've got a little more sympathy, which is that Otamendi at least is being a little aggressive in going for the ball and he's putting Lukaku under pressure, right? The second one, he's not really under any pressure except he just needs to connect and clear.
Except he's a Premier League footballer and he's a large man. And that's what's going to happen. If you're defending a corner, what do you expect Otamendi just to be like, oh, never mind, I'm sorry, Romelu. I don't want to cause you any stress.
Excuse me, sir.
No, I mean, that's a thing you've got to deal with. And I didn't really buy this when I first watched it, but yeah, as you said upon second viewing, it really just the entire performance, it speaks to a player who doesn't have much confidence, that he's not attacking the ball, that he's so focused on not making a mistake that he ends up making a different type of mistake. But even when he does have the ball,
that's true for both goals.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then when he does have the ball, yes, there are times when he's very isolated and there's only so much he can do, but even when he gets the ball in space when he has time, he still sort of looks indecisive. He's not playing smart passes to feet. Even when he has flick-ons when Zlatan comes on near the end, it wasn't a very cohesive game from him from start to finish. And again, it speaks to me to a player who just really is kind of not sure what he's supposed to be doing.
And I think we're focusing on Lukaku because, he didn't connect the Man United attack. He looked, as you said, kind of indecisive and lacking in confidence whenever United went forward. And I think a lot of plays broke up at his feet. And then he's got the two defensive mistakes. But it's not as if it's just all his fault.
No.
I kind of want to frame it as Pep Guardiola and Manchester City did this to him and did this to Manchester United. And it's almost just that he almost has to be the most obvious representation of it, the things that happened to him. But it kind of happened to the whole team.
It did. And so let's talk about why that was, because I think it probably does deserve a thumbs up to Pep Guardiola for really kind of messing with what I think Jose Mourinho thought he was going to do.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let's think of it this way then. We knew that Man United would come out. We thought maybe back three, but ended up being back four with two defensive midfielders ahead and really five midfielders in the end when everybody collapses back and really clogging the middle. The classic Jose parking the bus, right? You got two defensive midfielders, two strong centre-backs, really hard to break through. And we thought that it would be a challenge.
It'd be a back three. We thought it'd be like a back three. You'd have even more presence in defence.
But essentially, we knew there'd be numbers in the middle, and it would be a challenge for Manchester City to try and pick their way through. And what I saw is Pep Guardiola essentially said, all right, you want the middle? That's fine. Keep all your guys there. I'll take everywhere else. So even though Gabriel Jesus started, for example, it took me until the second viewing to realise Gabriel Jesus did not play centre forward.
No, and you'll see him listed as a 4-3-3 is what most sites have it, and it's a front three of Gabriel Jesus in the middle, Leroy Sané on the left, Raheem Sterling on the right.
No way was it that.
Nope, it certainly was not.
It was Gabriel Jesus on the left. It was Leroy Sané, on the right, and actually pulled quite wide, right? And then weirdly, Raheem Sterling, I would call him, I kind of don't like saying this phrase, I would call him a false nine.
Yeah.
Because he is theoretically then the centre forward, but instead he's coming back into essentially the attacking midfield or central midfield zone, or he's providing an overload on the left where he teams up with Jesus, or an overload on the right when he teams up with Sané, right? And then you've got Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva are the two central attacking midfielders, but they don't even stay central where it would be easy for, Matic and Herrera to mark them in the middle. They pull wide as well. So it's the whole Man City team pulling wide and just making United make a decision, right?
But see, this is where this maybe is my Manchester United fandom coming in. So I want to acknowledge that might be the case, but I still think that that's what Mourinho wanted. I think what Guardiola did in some ways sort of suited Manchester United, because I think the idea was, you're going to try to deny space in the middle. We're going to try to spread the ball wide, put numbers out wide, and then that's going to force you into pulling people out to get some overlaps, and then there'll be spaces in behind because now people are out of position. And more often than not, I felt like United kind of kept the shape that they wanted to keep. They ceded possession out wide and didn't really care. And City didn't really get many opportunities coming through the middle by pulling people out wide. So in that regard, it worked. And I think that's part of the reason why Mourinho was so angry at the end, is because to do all that properly but still lose the game off of two set pieces probably is pretty maddening when you've probably worked very, very hard in the week to prepare for this game.
So definitely the game was lost on set pieces, but I think it was also lost on Manchester United's, I'm going to say almost total inability to counter-attack in a threatening way.
Exactly, yeah.
Every time they would get the ball back, they'd try and break, but Man City would do the thing where they it is literally the counter-press, right? As soon as you turn the ball over, you just get in the face of the team that's now got the ball and try and win it back high and kill their attack and get the ball back.
I mean, if it were
catch them on the front foot.
If it were Jurgen Klopp doing it, it would be the gegenpress.
Yeah.
It's essentially what they were doing. It was hunting in packs. It was everybody working really hard off the ball. Yeah, and you would see, and sort of just a wave of players, three players running back to break up a counter, but then when the ball would be dropped back to Ashley Young, three players step into Ashley Young, and it was just kind of constant pressure that forced United, more often than not, into kicking the ball long or giving the ball up kind of cheaply around midfield.
Yeah, and I remember Ashley Young is the guy that sticks in my head as, I think he kicked long early a couple of times, and then he got determined to not do it, and he kind of just got himself in a bit of trouble each time he tried not to do it. And that's the sort of success of the Man City counter-press, is that Young couldn't not kick it long and couldn't kick it long, and just he ended up not being able to do anything.
I think the one that was most telling for me, and I say that not having it written down, but it was in the first 15 minutes, Marcus Rashford gets the ball on the left and tries to dribble down and gets stuck, but the ball's supposed loose to Ashley Young, who sort of looks around and is like, okay, I'll try that too, and he also gets stuck, and then it leads to, I think, a City corner. But it's sort of I've kicked it long and that didn't work. I've tried to pass out and that didn't work. Maybe I'll dribble, but it's repeating exactly what Marcus Rashford did that didn't work, and again, it doesn't work.
It weirdly, this is a scary thing now, it reminded me of Pep's Barcelona. The famous thing that sort of Pep's Barcelona did is every time they lost the ball, they were on you fast and hard, and no one could work their way out of it.
I mean, I would say there was other reasons why Barcelona were famous for, under Pep. I would say maybe their defensive work was not one of the primary ones.
But it was one of the most effective things they did, right? It was that they passed the ball around, but then when they lost it, they were on you straight away, and you couldn't get out, no matter how good you were.
But to go back to what I was saying before, though, that's all very true. But I still think it's a weird thing where if United weathered the storm, didn't concede those two, basically bad plays on set pieces, there's a decent chance this finishes 1-0. And then I do think we look at it as Jose Mourinho figured it out. He figured out how to kind of nullify that City attack. Because the thing I would say is that Barcelona team, yes, they did all that defensive work, but they shredded teams. They shredded Manchester United in 2 different Champions League finals by just passing their way through and finding that space. And so it is a weird thing where they didn't quite do that.
The one thing I would say, though, is if you think of how indecisive and kind of nervous some of that Lukaku and weird decision-making that Lukaku clearance was, I want to make the case that maybe the way that Man City pressed Man United and wouldn't let them do anything is part of his mental state, and that's part of why he's not able to clear balls correctly. Do you know what I mean? They really put Manchester United in a very nervous state of mind, and that leads to them scoring on the set pieces. I think you pointed this out at the time or afterwards, that when Man United equalised, Rashford scored that really
I was about to go to this,
there was a reaction on the bench that kind of I think said a lot about where Man United are at.
Yeah, it was basically all of their players and all of the assistants that I could see erupted. And you would. I mean, it's a Manchester derby, that makes sense. But it wasn't that Manchester derby, we've done it. It was much more of like, can you believe we've done this? And it definitely felt like a team that were set up. I think Alan Shearer said it was a team that were set up out of fear. Yeah. And it was a fear of being walloped is when pressed what he meant by that. And I think that's true, that it was sort of a team that when they went 1-0 down, were a little bit like, that was not supposed to happen, and now we are in trouble. Yeah. And when they get that equalizer, everybody reacts in such a way that Mourinho, with one hand...
They were Iceland qualifying for the World Cup.
Exactly. And Mourinho sort of he doesn't do he does the everybody calm down, but he doesn't do the very dramatic one that you'll see from players sometimes. That's like, hey, let's all just calm down, let's play our game. It's much more like, guys, stop. It's sort of meant to be hidden from the camera almost.
Basically, don't let them know that we're so excited to have scored. We're at home, we should be expecting to score.
This shouldn't be a big thing, but I think that speaks volumes. I think it was. I think that United approached this game as the underdogs, and that's what you would do when you're 8 points behind, now 11 points. But it's also not a thing, and we had a conversation with a couple different friends of ours who are Manchester United fans today, and it did feel like a lot of people were sort of, yes, he's getting results here and there, yes, they're in second, but it's not Manchester United. It's not a team that go out there with that swagger and expect to win.
Yeah.
And I do think that if you're already frustrated by Manchester United this season, this certainly didn't help, because it was definitely a team that were set up to not lose and still lost.
Well, you think of say Jesse Lingard's one of the attacking players, but his key job seemed to be closing down passing lanes through the middle so that Man City couldn't come down there. And that says everything about Manchester United's stance in this game, which was a defensive crouch.
And that's where I would say also, to that point, thumbs up to Manchester City for really effectively nullifying any Man United attack, because I think, again, they thought, there's going to be at least two holding midfielders. Guardiola thought there's going to be two holding midfielders, so we need to try to do everything we can to pull them out of position to create space in which other players can run. And that worked. And then the player that basically had to then cover was Jesse Lingard. And we saw it a couple different times in the first half where Lukaku was talking to Mourinho, or we would see Lukaku kind of gesturing, because I think the idea was Lingard was supposed to stay within 10 to 20 yards of Lukaku to have that link up. But he kept having to drop in. So even when he would win the ball back, there was one sequence when United actually avoided the pressure, were able to kind of pass the ball around, keep it away from City. But it ends up basically with no one ahead of them except for Lukaku 40 yards up the field.
Is it because they'd only evaded the pressure by getting everybody back and getting more passing options?
Basically,
and that point, you're sort of trapped in your own half, right?
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
In a box.
Yeah, and so I think that, again, a very effective game plan from Pep Guardiola.
The one thing is, though, Ederson. Thumbs up to Ederson, because for all Manchester City's success, this could have been a 2-2 game, if not for his one, I want to call it a throat save or a face save. I'm not sure exactly where it hits him.
Jaw save?
Jaw save.
Well, I guess he's holding his throat afterwards, so throat is appropriate.
His jaw save followed by the get back up and get your hands up save.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, and again, we talked about
Herrera. Is it Herrera with the follow up or Mata?
I think it's Mata. Yeah. Mata comes in.
It's a Spanish dude.
Yes. And Lukaku with the initial attempt. And again, Ederson gets credit for the save, and he should. I think he deserves more credit for the second save, even if it's not as visually stunning.
You mean the one he knew about?
Yeah, exactly. But that's my point, is that he does well to get himself in a position to make the first save. But it is still sort of that if Lukaku hits that anywhere else, it's probably a goal. But he hits it right at Ederson because he's just focused on getting a shot on frame, because that's all he can focus on. A striker who's in form, if you have David Silva, for example, who's not a striker, but you get my point, there's a decent chance he picks a spot and finishes that one. So I do think, again, there's that element. But then after that first save off the throat, neck, face, whatever, it's Ederson's ability to not... He's already kind of gone down to make that save.
And he's essentially taken the equivalent of a punch to the face.
Yes,
you know
exactly. Yeah,
he's rocked.
Yeah, true. But when I say he goes down, I mean he's like kind of gotten low to make sure that he doesn't get 5-holed. But then he's able to
that's nutmegged for English speakers.
But when he's able to, I think that's an English one. But when he's able to kind of like engage that core, which we've talked about so often, is a key aspect of goalkeepers, that he's able to kind of stay upright, not fall over, not dive over, but get up enough that he can then get his hands up to make that second save, and that's what's so impressive to me.
I think we nerdily sort of compared it to Neo in The Matrix, where he sort of leans backwards to dodge the bullet, and then like he has the core strength, which I'm sure is like either wire work or CGI, because Keanu Reeves isn't in that good a shape. And brings himself back up to get himself in position.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's brilliant, and you're right, that obviously could have been 2-2 at that point, and then again, it's a different story. To some extent.
The final thing I want to sort of thumbs up Man City for is the final 4-5 minutes.
I've got one more after you, but yes, I want to talk about this for sure.
So, I mean, we'll talk about the Liga MX final later. I mean, Tigres, spoiler alert, they won the Liga MX Apertura final. They spent the last 5 minutes feigning various injuries to run the clock down.
They sure did.
Manchester City spent the final few minutes of this game keeping the ball in the corner and whacking it off of Ashley Young's shins to keep winning corner kicks. Right? It was the best sort of keep the ball in the corner I think I've ever seen from any team ever. The pinnacle being Bernardo Silva, who'd come on, who dribbles into the box, turns around and dribbles back to the corner.
I mean, it's smart.
And I think of it as like, one, it takes talent, right, to hold on to the ball, because you're under a lot of pressure because Manchester United are desperate to get the ball back. They're kind of coming at you trying to win it in the corner. But also just the mental discipline of Bernardo Silva to be like, I could make this 3-1, I could be in the headlines, I could be the hero of the Manchester derby, but instead I'm going to do the smart thing and head back to that corner. I'm
going to guess...
Like I've been told, I want to say.
I can't remember who the defender was. I'm just going to say it was Mangala because he's already got picked on by Guardiola in the game for wearing a Santa hat, a Man City-themed Santa hat.
Right? Yeah.
But there was definitely one player who booted it long, like in like the 85th minute or so, and he just like wanted to get it clear, and Guardiola lost his mind. So I think maybe Bernardo Silva heard that and thought, okay, I'm not going to be the one to get screamed at. Everybody else already has. I'm just going to hold the ball up.
You got any more thumbs for this game?
I do. Well, I just want to say thumbs down to Manchester United's corner defense, which is an obvious thing to say, but especially for the first one. And I think it probably also is paired with thumbs up to Man City for their creative corner attacking.
Because the weird irony here, or the paradox, no, irony I guess is a better word, is that you would think Man United had the advantage on set pieces, mostly because they have so many big guys, right? Both the centre-backs, Matic is huge, right? Lukaku's a big guy. They should be winning these.
They should be. And so then you look, and I know like a lot of the narrative is like Ashley Young kept David Silva onside for the opening goal. First of all,
it doesn't matter, right? If it's off Lukaku,
yeah.
It doesn't matter if you can't be offside when it's the opposition player plays you through.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's number one. But number two, I would also say that it's Ashley Young defending in case there's like a low-driven one or like any sort of short corner.
Yeah.
But he is the only player who's within 6 yards of the touchline for Manchester United. Everyone else is outside of the 6-yard box, and I think that's because they're kind of backing their size and expecting like City can do whatever they want to do, but we've got the height we can manage. But I think because of that, it allows City, who are definitely like smaller in terms of average height, a little bit more like they have to do other things. And so I think all of the movement and kind of chaos that's caused by a bunch of players starting outside the 18 but sprinting in at full speed, I think it makes it difficult to deal with.
I'm guessing it was kind of like, all right, a straight up ball in the air and we all just jump straight up for it. We're not winning this. But if we all have a run up and we all start from roughly the top of the box, you've got the momentum, you've got more chance, right? And in the end, it is, for that first goal, it is Otamendi sort of, if he'd gone harder, he kind of would have gone through the back of Lukaku because he's heading towards goal. And Lukaku weirdly ends up facing his own goal and chesting it down towards his own goal, which is never what you want to be doing as a defender, right? You're trying to clear it in the exact opposite direction to what Lukaku did.
It was just so confusing to me because when I first watched it, I was like, how is Ashley Young the only one who's back? Like, did he not step? Did everybody else? And you go back and watch, there's nobody on the post, there's nobody there. I think it's just United thinking, we'll either win this or they'll have somebody run through and be offside. But when you don't win the first one or win it but in the wrong way, it sets up the opportunity for the other team to get
Final
that goal.
thing I want to say is thumbs down now to Pep Guardiola for turning the Premier League into one of those boring leagues that Pep plays in and his team crushes everybody and runs away with it, because Man City are now 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League and just set the record for consecutive wins. 14 consecutive Premier League wins.
And
we're only halfway through, right? But this is looking like one of those Pep seasons. This is a Bayern Munich running away with the Bundesliga, Barcelona winning La Liga with Pep and Judge.
Speaking of those two, it's the largest gap between first place and second place of any of Europe's top 5 leagues already.
Right?
And I think this weekend you had Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho say, yeah, it's over. Basically, like, Jose Mourinho really didn't want to, but in the end was like, yes. So, yes, it's conceivable to say that the title race is over.
I mean, 11 points. I look at it. Actually, now I've said thumbs down. It's still doable to catch that between now and May, but only if Man City suffer some weird downturn in fortune,
and I know,
which I kind of don't see happening.
And we do want to wrap it up because I know we've got a lot to get to. But the final thing I wanted to speak to, like with what you're talking about, was like the Mangala hat thing, which we talked about before as sort of like Guardiola maybe being a little bit too like, hey, I have to have every detail controlled. But I also think that's sort of him being like, hey, not a time to mess around. Don't like be goofing off with the fans. It's a Manchester derby. Take it seriously. And I feel like that's going to
take the bubble hat off.
Yeah, and I feel like that's going to kind of bleed into the rest of the season. I really don't see an 11-point gap slipping.
For that reason, right?
Yeah. Just because I think he's going to be so hyper-focused on making everything continue to run properly. Maybe that burns them out next season. Who knows? But right now, I think they've probably got it pretty well locked up.
Okay, well, I guess we'll find out in May. But let's hope for some drama between now and then.
Sure.
Okay, there's the rest of the Premier League, and we'll talk about them after today's sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Greats. Greats is Brooklyn's first sneaker company. They offer what their name suggests, the Greats. That means high-quality, classic styles for men and women that are made the best for less.
Indeed. And what we like to do is try to reward a player from the weekend with a pair of Greats. Theoretically, we are not buying and shipping. No, I'm sure that would be weird if the player in question like opened up a box of shoes. We're just like, what's happening?
I'm sure if you're going to choose any professional soccer player, I bet they get sent shoes all the time.
Yeah, I think last week we did like the Benedetto goalkeeper.
Yes.
So maybe he doesn't, but everybody else probably gets their fair share of,
but
free
none
shoes.
That are as good looking as the shoes you get from Greats.
This is true.
So who are you sending a pair of Greats to, Taylor, this week, and why?
I'm going to be sending David Silva the Royale Reverse Cadet because, number one, it comes in blue, which I think is an important thing for David Silva. You know, got to keep it uniform.
Head to toe color.
Yeah. Sure. And number two, the description is that it's crafted from nubuck, which is suede's more durable yet extremely soft cousin. Okay. And I feel like that's David Silva. Like, you don't think of him as like a big imposing guy, as we talked about, but he still has like that super soft touch that can settle the ball, keep it under control, but still take those challenges, handle the physicality of the Premier League.
Acrobatically volley winners.
Indeed, and get injured last week and still start this week.
I forgot about that. This whole David Silva performance happens with him expected not to start because of injury.
Theoretically. Or
Guardiola's running a media game.
Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? But anyway, I think David Silva, for his physicality, for his grace, for his durability, for his soft touch, all the reasons why he deserves the Royale Reverse Cadet.
So if you want to get a look at the Royale Reverse Cadet for yourself, you go to greats.com. The link will be in the show notes. You can see all the great styles. They have a really good selection. You can click your way through.
This is true.
And read the copy, great copy on greats.com. If you want to get 15% off any order that you send to David Silva or to yourself or to a friend or family member for, say, the holidays, you get 15% off if you use the discount code Total Soccer Show, all one word. Use the discount code Total Soccer Show at checkout for 15% off at greats.com. The link will be in the show notes. You are welcome to click it.
Thank you to Greats for sponsoring today's program. Now let's get to the rest of the Premier League, shall we? Or at least the Premier League games that we're going to talk about today.
I love when you say program. So the other big game on Sunday, with all due respect to Arsenal-Southampton, was the Merseyside derby. Liverpool won, Everton won. I want to start with thumbs up to Mohamed Salah.
Okay.
His goal, his opening goal, was the trifecta. It was strength. He absolutely knocked over Cuco Martina. It was kind of like a who's strongest 50-50 we're running into this thing, and the answer was Mohamed Salah by a distance.
I still don't think he quite knew what he was doing on that one.
Martina or Salah?
Salah. Like, I think it's like he knows he's going into a physical challenge and he's going to keep control of the ball. But it's still, I think at the end, he sort of was like, oh, I still have it. Okay, great. Now I'll do the next thing that is kind of amazing.
Well, then the second part of the trifecta is that he reacts quickly, and then his feet are too quick for the recovering Martina and Idrissa Gana Gueye, who's coming in to try and make it happen. He gives a quick shimmy, gets away from him. Then his shot is, I'm going to say, too bendy for both Ashley Williams and Jordan Pickford in the Everton goal. It bends around Williams, around Pickford, but not around the goal. It bends into the goal to make it Liverpool 1, Everton 0. And Mohamed Salah celebrates like a man who knows he can do this every weekend. And possibly through the summer for Egypt.
Well, that's what you have to do. You have to act like it's not a big deal when you score the amazing goal. Yeah. Yes. And I think he was pretty pleased right up until the end of the game when it finished 1-1. Yeah.
It sure did. Wayne Rooney penalty kick? Jurgen Klopp not thrilled about it in the post-match interview.
That's one way of putting it?
Yeah. So Wayne Rooney takes it and scores it. There was a bit of nerves in the run-up, I felt, because of the pressure of a Merseyside derby, right?
I would disagree, and I will say thumbs up to Wayne Rooney for preparing. He talked about it after the game. He said that basically Mignolet has saved his penalties in the past.
Has he?
So he worked in practice the day before on specifically on where he was going to put the penalty and just decided I'm going to lash it right dead center of the goal. Mignolet, I guess, has a tendency to leave a little bit early.
He went roof of the net hard as he could, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it was Mignolet in goal. He said it was Mignolet, so I'm assuming it was, but who knows? Either way.
Wayne Rooney's a good source to have.
He hit that. I mean, I wouldn't even say roof. I think he just kind of hit it upper part of the goal, but really hit it hard. And I think basically...
It's the less delicate version of the Panenka, is to hit it as hard as you can down the middle.
Yeah. And I think really was just expecting Mignolet to dive one way or the other. It didn't really matter. And so, yeah, I'd say confidence to Wayne Rooney to back himself to stick with that plan and not think, maybe I should try to place it into the side netting.
The reason I said nerves is before he starts his run-up, he does that little, when you run on the spots, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, really quick, and then do the run-up. And I always interpret that as nervous energy that you're trying to get rid of. Maybe I'm interpreting that incorrectly.
Yeah, maybe that's you. Maybe that's what you do when you're nervous. Good to know. If I ever see you take a penalty.
Why would Rooney do it? Any ideas? So, you do that running on the spot thing.
Well, it's weird because I think
faking out the keeper type
thing? But I think that would usually be something you do if you're doing a Panenka. And so maybe that's not a great idea if you are then going to shoot it dead center because the idea is the run up, you're going to put so much power behind it. But maybe that's what happened, and maybe Mignolet bought it, that it's just going to be Wayne Rooney hitting as hard as he could into the corner, not right down the middle. And
it was a Rooney, I'm going to call it a cross/direct ball to Dominic Calvert-Lewin to win the penalty kick. So from my perspective, it is a really good Rooney ball, right? It bends into Calvert-Lewin's path, takes it on the thigh, I believe. Lovren puts his hands on his back. Calvert-Lewin goes down. Jurgen Klopp in the post-match interview said that essentially Calvert-Lewin leaned into Lovren or deliberately stepped into Lovren, went looking for it. I'm going to say that even if that's the case, I'm going to say thumbs up to young English strikers being really smart in the box.
Really? See, but so I feel like you've gone away because I think initially when we talked about this, I thought you thought it was a penalty.
I do.
So you do. So, but
it can be both, right? If you step into him and he puts his hands in and kind of pushes you, that's still a foul. Even if you've sort of initiated the contact. You know what I'm saying?
No, if you're the one initiating the contact, if you're jumping into the player and then they're putting their hands up, no, I would argue that you're the one who's then initiating contact.
Isn't Lovren pushing him forwards, putting his hands on his back and exerting a forward motion so he pushes him down?
I don't know. And that's kind of the talking point, is that Lovren definitely has his hands up. But I would say that if you're the player who is sort of jumping in or changing your direction and the other player is kind of reacting to that, then you're the one who's initiating the contact. And so if they put their hands up, they put their hands up. But that's the issue for me, is hands up doesn't necessarily mean it. It's if you're then applying pressure to force the player over.
Okay.
And I don't know if Lovren does that.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I'm not sure either how much he sort of pushes forward or just has his hands stationary and Calvert-Lewin bounces off them.
Yeah, and I think one key part here is that the referee is about 25 yards behind it, but he's
Which is okay, right? That's not far.
And he's right, and especially because it comes from a Wayne Rooney ball from midfield. But he's center of the pitch, as you would expect him to be.
Isn't there a Viking in the way though?
Well, that's the thing. I think he's trying. I think he wants to get a better vantage point. So he the referee moves from the center pitch over to the left a little bit, and when he does that, Gylfi Sigurdsson is ahead of him, and I think momentarily screens his view. And I've screenshotted it so we can post this to Twitter if we want to.
Yes, please do.
But I think when he starts to move out of the middle, that's when Lovren's hands are going up, and by the time he's gotten into a position where he can see again, Calvert-Lewin is going down.
So you think the referee misses the crucial moment where Lovren either extends his arms or he doesn't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think
he fills in the rest in his head. And penalty kick.
And I think he sees hands up, then the player down. Yeah, that's going to be a penalty kick.
Ooh, that's good #analysis.
I think so. Although I'm just still I'm still undecided. I'm inclined to think that maybe Calvert-Lewin probably sells it more than he needs to. But there is the old Albert Otati adage specifically about Liverpool conceding penalties, because that's where it came from. It's don't make the referee have to make the decision.
Yeah.
And that's what Dejan Lovren did. He was very angry about it, both in terms of like right after the call, then at halftime, or then at the end of the game. He was still having words with the referee.
And then Klopp, weirdly, I didn't quite follow Klopp's logic in the post-match interview, because it was kind of about how Liverpool had dominated the game, right? And did all the attacking. And then he essentially said, not to the referee, but said of the referee, like, after we'd been the team that was doing all the work, all the attacking work, why would you then give them that? Like, as if that the penalty decision is somehow depends on the balance of attack. That's not how it works, is it? It works on the specific moment. That could have been Everton's only attack of the whole game. It either is or it isn't a penalty. It doesn't matter what Liverpool have done at the other end.
Yeah.
Right?
Genuinely, I think that this is a thing to remember, is that Jurgen Klopp is not a native English speaker. And I did feel at times in this interview that emotion took over.
Oh,
and maybe
he apologized to the interviewer, the video I saw. He apologized at the end.
I think a couple different times
he said, sorry for what I said before.
Yeah.
But then left abruptly.
And I do wonder if like that was sort of him like having a bunch of thoughts in there, because what I think he was getting at is that basically Liverpool had like 70% of possession. They had like far more chances. I think that was Everton had like 2 shots on target in the entire game, maybe. And so I think his point was, we've been doing all this. We've been playing like the much better team. It's really a shame that it gets decided because of like maybe what was a dive, although Klopp would say it was definitely a dive. But still, I think it was an angry reaction to that result.
Maybe he was out-tacticked by Big Sam?
Maybe. I think he was let down a little bit by some of his players, because I know one of the big talking points was Sadio Mane's failure to square a ball in a 4v1 situation.
Yes.
I'm inclined to say thumbs up to Ashley Williams, however.
Yes.
Because he is the one in that 4v1 equation. And essentially he does everything he possibly can to dissuade Sadio Mane from squaring the ball, passing to his teammates, while at the same time...
play the percentages, basically.
Yeah, but at the same time sort of pressuring him a little bit wider so that he doesn't have that like clear 1v1 chance. It is from a tougher angle. Still should either get a shot on target or like drop it back to any number of players who were there. But Ashley Williams does a really good job to make sure that players can't get like in behind him. He basically keeps everybody from going offside, and then is able to come across at the last second to put Mane under pressure. It's really good work from Ashley Williams.
Okay, so thumbs up to Ashley Williams. I also do genuinely want to give a kind of begrudging thumbs up to Big Sam, because I didn't think of Everton as having a target man, and yet he seems to have turned Dominic Calvert-Lewin into his target man.
Yep.
I feel like he can find one wherever he goes.
I also enjoyed the like typical Big Sam. I think you know how people have the idea of like, oh, it's like Route 1, it's just going to be overly direct.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not necessarily
fair. It's not
fair.
quite that, right? I feel like a better example is that Rooney pass to Calvert-Lewin. Like, it's direct, but it's also a proper pass.
Yeah.
It's not as if it's just a centre-back kicking it long for Calvert-Lewin to chase.
But I think his answers are at times direct, and that was what I did enjoy when they like afterwards interviewed him, and they're like, you know, Jurgen was very upset by the penalty decision. What did you make of it? And he was like, well, I don't know why he's upset. It was definitely a penalty. And that was it. Like he just was sort of like, yeah, it was a penalty. Don't shove him in the back. That's it. Like, it was just sort of like, all right, that's the directness that we've come to expect.
Those West Midlands people can be very blunt.
There we are.
Sometimes. So the Merseyside derby finished 1-1.
And I think Liverpool fans probably justified in their feelings of frustration from that one. And I think Everton fans should just be happy.
Can I also say thumbs up to football in the snow?
Yeah.
Because what I saw from this game, it just looked really sort of, I don't know, it felt like a proper wintertime game with not the like Buffalo NFL style, like 1 foot of snow that you're playing in, but just snowflakes coming down gives it that kind of, I want to say it's kind of a Christmassy feel. And I sort of, even though I think the Premier League Christmas schedule is idiotic and probably cost us all sorts of... causes us all sorts of problems later in the next year. It is beautiful to see sometimes.
It is.
Yeah, I get that seasonal feeling. Any other thumbs from the rest of the Premier League?
Yeah, I'm going to say thumbs down to Antonio Conte for not getting that Christmas spirit that you mentioned, because he was not in the best of like festive moods after Chelsea's 1-0 loss to West Ham.
I mean, you wouldn't be, right?
No, you would not. And I think there are various reasons for that. Number one being that Marko Arnautovic's goal is an amazing goal for Marko Arnautovic,
hey,
but it's also
that's damning by faint praise.
No, it's because it's a really good goal, like for him, like he made it a good goal, but Chelsea also helped out by not doing a very good job of defending him.
I see what you're saying.
Because there are many opportunities for a number of different Chelsea players to step and win that ball or block off the shot or do any number of things that they do not end up doing, which allows Arnautovic to shoot inside, 7 minutes, I think it was?
Yep.
And then
it's a quick one, too. I like the pace of that one, too.
Yeah, with Lanzini, I think it was.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to say, I know you didn't mean that it's a good for him.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that's a fast attacking move for a David Moyes team.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and then for Marko Arnautovic, first goal for West Ham, first goal in the league since April of last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's had a rough time. He got the red card. He got an injury. So I think he really needed that goal, and David Moyes certainly needed that goal. I'm going to say thumbs up to David Moyes as well for not only beating Chelsea, but making the tough decision. Dropped to Joe Hart.
I
kept
forgot
the clean
about
sheet.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Hart. It's a long way back for Joe Hart. And the World Cup gets closer every day.
I do. I think you and I had this conversation, and I think I've heard you have it with at least one, if not two other people, and all three times it ended with, Joe Hart's still England's starting goalkeeper, right? To which you were like, for now.
For now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time between now and
But Antonio Conte was the other one, along with Jose Mourinho, who said that Chelsea were out of the title race. Jose Mourinho obviously saying that about Manchester United, not about Chelsea.
Is anybody saying they're in?
I guess Pep Guardiola. But Antonio Conte was interesting, basically saying that their title defense never got started, that they already have 4 losses in 16 games, and was kind of critical, I think, of a lot of the players, the way they have approached this season. Sounds very similar to a certain former Chelsea manager who was equally frustrated by his title-winning team's lack of a proper defense.
Oh, dear. All right, so another team that might challenge for the title, maybe it's an outside bet, Tottenham Hotspur, they're back at it. They beat Stoke 5-1.
I have a feeling they finished the season in second place. That is my guess.
I didn't see the whole match, got to be honest, but I saw some very good extended highlights. 5-1. I'm going to start with a thumbs up to Dele Alli. You know I'm a big fan of Dele Alli. I know he's had a little dip in form, but I still think he's capable of big, big things. Nutmeg assist. He put the ball through Ryan Shawcross's legs beyond Kurt Zouma for Son to score, I think, Spurs' first goal, or maybe the second goal, in what would be the 5-1 win. We know from Secret Soccer Shop owner, who's a Spurs fan, that Dele Alli loves a nutmeg. So he'll be celebrating this nutmeg assist.
I feel like Dele Alli's...
Again, very seasonal.
The face I'm making, the quizzical furrowed brow, I'm trying to think of what the plot of a book called Beyond Kurt Zouma should be, but it does seem like it should be a book, and I'm not sure what. Maybe it's just Dele Alli's autobiography.
Beyond Kurt Zouma.
Yeah.
It's where he puts all his passes.
Yeah.
Also, thumbs up to Harry Kane. I don't know if you've seen this. For his first goal, he tackles the goalkeeper. I think it's Jack Butland in goal for Stoke. Then as the ball pops up from the tackle, he does a diving header. Butland saves it. Then Kane scores from the corner kick.
Yeah, there we go.
It's not bad, right?
Harry Kane.
Harry Kane doing
England's
things.
starting goalkeeper?
He's England's not starting corner kick. And then a final thumbs up to Spurs for scoring on the everyone back counter-attack corner kick goal.
Oh,
they had one of those, and it ended with, I think, a 5v3. It was Peter Crouch had a go at the ball in the air. Harry Winks kind of just gave him a little nudge, put him off. Crouch's header came loose. Not quite Lukaku bad, but, Crouch's header came loose. The whole Spurs team kind of advanced very, very quickly up the field.
I have a feeling that 2018 is going to be the year of the innovative corner kick.
Yes.
Because so many teams, it seems like, are transitioning into the idea that a corner kick is a prime opportunity to launch a counterattack. So when you're defending a corner, I would venture to guess that more goals this season have been scored from teams defending a corner going the opposite way than teams who get the corner themselves.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if we're set for teams to start experimenting with weird approaches, or just always taking them short, or not really capitalizing on the opportunity.
I've always been of the idea that if you're winning, you shouldn't send your centre backs forward to attack a corner kick, because then you're leaving your two sort of most reliable defenders out of the defence.
Yep.
Right? So it's asking for trouble.
Or maybe send one centre back forward, but keep your fastest player back. So you've got one who knows the defensive positioning and one who can catch up with anybody on a fast break counter.
Yes, that's true. That could work.
I hate short corners. Don't do short corners. Short corners are the worst.
No short corners.
No.
Also, Lucas Muller pointed out on Twitter, thumbs up to Jeff Cameron, because for his 15 minutes on the field, Stoke won 1-0.
There we go.
It's finished 5-1 with a late goal, and Jeff Cameron was there for that final 15.
All Jeff Cameron.
So, yeah.
Get him on that plane.
So he had a good day.
To somewhere.
What else you got? I got one more here.
Go ahead.
Thumbs up to Jermaine Defoe.
Yep.
200 league goals. He scored 2 for Bournemouth in the 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace. The second one was, I think the commentator called it Van Basten-esque.
He did.
Which is a little generous because Van Basten didn't let the ball bounce.
See, it's weird. It's a little generous, but at the same time, Van Basten's is still he wallops that ball. He's walloped twice now.
This
in
is
the
Euro
same show.
88 for people who haven't seen.
This one, Jermaine Defoe's, I would say, is almost more impressive because it's from a tighter angle, and it really is. I watched it probably 20 times because at first I was like, there's no way he meant to do that. Mm-hmm. And you watch it more and more and you realize, no, he's absolutely picked that spot. He knows that's the only way he's getting a shot on target.
He kind of lifts it over, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's he's out of bounds like as soon as he hits that ball. So it's sort of like there's no way he can cut it back. He has to. Basically, it's the only thing he can do, and he does it perfectly to put it in the back of the net.
Did you hear about the post-match? Oh, yeah, I know you
I sent it to you,
You
yeah.
sent it to me, right? Should I turn this over to you then, rather than stealing a thing that you found?
It's fine. I mean, to paraphrase, essentially afterwards in the post-match interview, while Jermaine Defoe was talking, Roy Hodgson came by, Crystal Palace manager, and said, like, oh, still putting him in there, to which Jermaine Defoe, after, like, I think Hodgson then left, Jermaine Defoe paused and then said, do you have it?
Still left me out of the World Cup, though, didn't he?
There it is. Yes.
Solid
burn.
Which he did in 2014. I assume, from what I know of Jermaine Defoe, that was done like in jest.
I believe it was.
But with maybe 1% of like, he should have taken me.
Yeah.
We might not have finished bottom of that group.
We call that kidding on the square.
Yes. Kidding on the square. Perfect. Okay, so before we move on to MLS Cup, we have a second sponsor on today's show.
That we do.
Today's sponsor is SeatGeek. SeatGeek. We love SeatGeek. Buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated and confusing, but there's a better way to buy with SeatGeek. 2 taps on your phone, you can buy or sell tickets to any sporting event, concert, or any other live event which you care to attend.
Yes, indeed. And in addition to buying tickets, it's also a great way to just see what's coming to town, because you can put in like your rough area and it will show you all the different sports games. That's a weird way to put that one. Yeah, sports ball games.
Let's go sporting events.
Sure. Concerts, comedy shows, all that good stuff. I was looking to see what band. Well, I was looking for a specific band. They're not coming to our town, but they are coming to your town if you live in Toronto, the West Coast, or Texas. Okay. That band is the Dead South. I mentioned them before. They're a great sort of like
triangular tour they're doing.
Yeah, they're starting in Toronto, then going West Coast. Yeah, you're right, and then I think San Antonio. So if you live in any of those areas, the West Coast or San Antonio.
The Dead South getting some air miles.
Yes, but they're very good. They're like I think they started off as a metal band and then transitioned into a bluegrass band. So they've got a weird background.
You sent me that. Yeah, I've heard them.
But I like them quite a bit. If you want a sampler of them, their best song, I would say, is In Hell I'll Be in Good Company.
Yes, I like that song
too. So they're touring. You can get their tickets on SeatGeek.
So what you need is the SeatGeek app. So you download the SeatGeek app, and then you can get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Once you download the app, you enter the promo code TSS, 3 letters, TSS, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Whether to see the Dead South in Toronto, the West Coast, or San Antonio.
Yeah.
It's weirdly specific and vague.
Indeed.
Those 3. Or any other event that you can find on SeatGeek. I want to say pretty much every event that's out there is on SeatGeek.
Pretty much every event that's out there. Sure. So thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's program. You could have used it to get tickets to MLS Cup final 2017 playoff championship concluding decider.
MLS Cup.
There we go.
Toronto versus Seattle. I assume maybe the Dead South were there. That's why they were playing that show in Toronto.
It's a good time to be there.
They wanted to go watch MLS Cup.
Sure.
It wasn't warm there either.
It was not.
It was in the 30s. But I'm sure hugging the trophy tight will keep the Toronto players happy and warm. 2-0 Toronto.
The Lord Nelson line. I think when asked if he was cold, he responded, "My zeal for king and country keeps me warm." Yeah. I assume Toronto players are like, "My zeal for the MLS Cup keeps me warm." That's all they needed. That's all they needed.
It does now. So at the second attempt, Toronto win MLS Cup. I'm going to say thumbs up to Greg Vanney for one, kind of ruining our preview.
Yep, a little bit.
But also outfoxing Brian Schmetzer. So Greg Vanney, almost the whole season, Toronto have played kind of a 3-5-2 or variations thereon, right? Maybe mixing around those midfielders. He went out in the MLS Cup final in a 4-4-2 diamond back 4, which includes dropping his nephew, Eric Zavaleta, Toronto centre-back. It's Greg Vanney's nephew. I didn't know this until day of. That's the guy he chose to sort of dispose of from the back 3 to make it a back 4.
Yeah.
It's a big, brave decision. You sort of kind of hurt a family member, but win the game.
And you said before we started recording that maybe you're okay with Greg Vanney being the U.S. national team coach if he were to be in consideration. I am inclined to agree.
After watching this game?
Yep.
Yes, because so in our preview, we really thought that the way that Toronto bring the ball out of the back in that back 3, it's kind of through Michael Bradley, and then the way Seattle are very good at closing down space, especially with that front 4 and then 2 defensive midfielders behind and a tight back 4, would make it really hard for Toronto to work their way through. But Greg Vanney kind of ripped up that, sort of saw that coming almost, and decided to go 4 at the back instead, put extra men in midfield. That's the sacrifice, right? Eric Zavaleta's out, you bring in an extra central midfielder. So you have a midfield of Michael Bradley, Marky Delgado, Jonathan Osorio, and Victor Vasquez.
Yep.
So it was essentially, this is the very basic version of it, too many midfielders for Seattle to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because one of the things we talked about was we were pretty sure it was going to be Nico Lodeiro and Jovan Jones starting out wide in the attack, and
Seattle,
we thought maybe they'd be coming inside at times to create overloads in the middle, and I think maybe Greg Vanney thought that too. So the response to that was to just put the numbers in the middle, give them the wings if they want them, but if they come inside, you're basically going to block it off. And it's essentially the opposite of the Man City approach, in that they basically were able to block that off but still get many opportunities going forward, and kind of completely nullified Seattle's attack.
I would say it also allowed Victor Vasquez to roam even more than usual, because then you've got Bradley, Osorio, and Delgado sort of holding the centre, and then Vasquez can go and find the space. And I think it was sort of the effect of it was doubled by what I think of as Chad Marshall and Roman Torres as the two Seattle centre-backs, their unwillingness to go high up the field. So they always sat kind of deep because they're not very fast. They're sort of scared of getting run at by Giovinco and Josie Altidore, I think correctly. But then that leaves a bit of a gap between then Roldan and Svensson, the two defensive midfielders, who are trying to deal with 4 Toronto central midfielders. And then ahead of that, the one guy I want to give a thumbs down to is Clint Dempsey, because Dempsey theoretically played it underneath Will Bruin, right? Which meant he should have joined. Sometimes he should have joined Svensson and Roldan in filling up that midfield. And the longer the game went on, it seemed to me that Dempsey was more about, I'm Clint Dempsey, I'm going to score the winner in MLS Cup. I don't need to go back and join that midfield stuff. I'm going to be up front. And it left his teammates outnumbered.
I think you're absolutely right, because in the first couple minutes, you absolutely saw him sprint 15, 20, 30 yards to get into a better defensive shape to help out those overmatched midfielders. And then as you're absolutely right, as the game progressed to the point within the first 5 minutes of the second half, he was just standing next to Will Bruin. But then suddenly, if you've got two center backs, and Taylor Twellman called them out on this kind of repeatedly. If you got
thumbs up Taylor Twellman for good on-the-fly tactical analysis as well. He did really well.
Yeah, but you've got Taylor Twellman. You got your two center backs staying deep. So there was, I think at one point, it was Will Bruin and Clint Dempsey were at the top of the Toronto box, and the two center backs for Seattle were still basically at the top of their box. And that's a decent gap that you then have to fill with two midfielders. Not going to get the job done.
And then, you mentioned Lodeiro and Rodriguez. The pressure was on them. Do they either go and join Bruin and Dempsey and try and stop Toronto bringing it out of the back? Or do they drop back and try and join Roldan and Svensson and form at least a bank of 4? And they kind of kept trying to do one or the other, and Toronto would just beat them up for whichever one they did. Because they would either leave the two defensive midfielders exposed, or they would just leave Bruin and Dempsey up top on their own.
Ugh. And then I think in the same way that Greg Vanney got his game plan completely right, I think Brian Schmetzer got it very wrong. Because or at
least he should have changed it early on when he saw what Toronto were doing.
Yes, that's definitely true. But I would also say that my prediction was that Jovan Jones would draw a yellow card. That basically he would be fouled, and that he would, I think, create a dangerous free kick opportunity.
You thought he would be the left winger,
and I think he should have been, because I think he offers you the defensive work coming back. But more importantly, he has been Seattle's big playmaker out wide, because Lodeiro comes inside and creates those overloads in the middle. And to not have him there, it just seems like that kind of played into Toronto's hands, because now you don't have this key attacking piece. You've moved him to fullback.
Well, he's not that good. I honestly think his positioning is not that good. I'd use the biggest evidence I would use is that Victor Vasquez sort of crazy good ball where he splits the Toronto defense and puts Giovinco through in the first half. It's available because Jovan Jones isn't in the correct defensive position.
Yeah, and I would say that he's definitely played there before. That's certainly what his primary position was for Seattle for a good long while. But I do think that when you start to, it's that thing where a defender then in the final few minutes of a game they play forward, and then in the next game if you're up 5-0, yeah, sure, go have a chance. But then the next game maybe that's still in their head a little bit, and they're I'll just cheat forward a little bit more, and suddenly their mark is now 10 yards onside behind them. It doesn't work quite so well.
So I noticed Schmetzer was about to bring on Nuhu for Victor Rodriguez, I believe, which would have meant sort of Jones going forward to left wing and Nuhu playing left back. In about the 60-something minute, he was going to do this, which I took as an admission that maybe I got this wrong from the start. But then Josie Altidore makes it 1-0, and there's a double rethink, and instead Jordan Morris comes on. Can we talk about that Josie Altidore goal?
Absolutely.
I want to say thumbs up to Josie Altidore for using his anger wisely.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's been a bit aggro right through the playoffs. He got sent off, right, and got suspended. Just before he scores, he gets into it with Roman Torres.
At least he didn't technically get sent off, because he got the red card in the tunnel, right? So it's more like he was off and then got a red card.
I think there was he got in some aggro with Roman Torres
Right.
after a Giovinco chance that was set up.
And we believe
some Spanish speaking.
Yeah, well, we believe he demonstrated his fluency in Spanish, particularly the bad words of Spanish. Yeah,
you noticed that, right?
I did.
So I guess thumbs up to Josie Altidore for being able to go at it with Roman Torres in a second language.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess Josie spent time in Spain, right? So that's why he speaks
My
Spanish.
guess would be that Josie's second language is French. Just throwing that one out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. So I worried that he was going to boil over,
Yep.
but a minute later he kind of uses that anger to do all kinds of smart things and make it 1-0 Toronto.
And I've played defense in my life, so I will speak. I'm guessing you would agree, though, that is the worst thing when you're the defender. So, get into the kind of jawing match, and you don't do that very often, but just to have that player who's just annoyed you, or you've kind of gotten into it a little bit, and then they go and score, it's the worst.
That's why I don't do it. Is I don't want to fire anyone up and have them have that extra burst of something to come at me with. I'd rather, especially if it's Josie Altidore, he's much easier to defend if you let him kind of be calm and maybe a little frustrated and in his own head, rather than I'm going to show you. Because the guy that scored the goal was I'm going to show you, Josie Altidore.
And I'll say I've been plenty critical of Josie Altidore throughout these playoffs, but in this situation, this is 100% on Torres for me because it's basically the inciting incident is Josie Altidore is making a run into the box. Whether or not he leaves his foot out, there's contact with Roman Torres. He goes down, screams for a penalty. It ends up being a shot from I think Giovinco.
Yeah, because Josie essentially passes it and goes down, and there's a bit of a tackle.
I think he's running in there to either get the return ball or get there for the rebound. Instead, it ends up being a Toronto corner. But Josie Altidore then laying on the ground, screams at the referee. And Roman Torres doesn't need to do anything, but I think he's so annoyed because he doesn't think that he's conceded a penalty or done anything wrong that he gets in Josie Altidore's face as Josie Altidore is on the ground. And that leads to them going back and forth. And I think you're right. That leads to Josie Altidore being like, well, I'll show you. And he certainly does.
And then his role in the goal is that Josie, it's essentially a Toronto counterattack, right? After Seattle have come down the field. Josie is miles offside to begin with and makes that very clever, Luis Suarez type run where you run back just enough to be onside. I'm still I'm not 100% convinced he's onside when the ball comes through from Giovinco, but it's just enough to touch onside and then turn back and go the other way.
And I think it's Roman Torres who I would say he was, maybe just barely.
It's either Torres or Jones. One of them is keeping him on or at least persuading the AR that they're keeping him on, right? So either reality or perception.
I'm going to say tie goes to the runner. And in this case, it's Josie Altidore.
Who
then, does really well because then he still gets, it's not like he's just clean in on goal at that point. He's still a decent amount of distance away with two defenders closing on him, holds that off, gets around the goalkeeper. It's a really good left-footed finish back of the net. 1-0 Toronto, but to say that's all Josie Altidore is to do a disservice to Toronto because I know you were pretty impressed by this one, as was I.
I wrote this down, but I've lost it. It's an initial tackle from Marky Delgado.
Can I back that one up one more second? Just to say you're absolutely right that it's Delgado who ends up winning that ball. But I'm going to say even before that, Justin Morrow deserves a shout out because it's basically Toronto attacking, Seattle counterattack, and then Toronto counter the counter. But Justin Morrow is involved in the initial Toronto attack and gets back 60, 70 yards at a full sprint to put, I forget who is under pressure, but that's the bad pass.
And
then I think that leads to the interception that then leads to
so Dempsey doesn't have it fully under control because of that pressure. The pass wasn't great. Then Delgado kind of gets a poke in. Then Drew Moore starts a series of sort of I'm calling them volleys, but instep out of the air volleys of just one touch, right? So it's more to Bradley, then Bradley swivels and one times it to
Morrow, I believe.
To Morrow, then to I think Vasquez, and then Vasquez outside of the foot, one bounce, one touch to Giovinco, who takes it in stride on the turn,
outside
one touch,
of the foot,
and then the through ball to Josie Altidore, who's just done that clever come back and touch on side and then go. It's so fast, so through the middle, and it also highlights everything that was wrong with Seattle in terms of the distance between defense and attack and the sort of thinness of midfield that you can do one touch in-step bounce passes through the middle.
And the problem with when Seattle do try to play sort of a higher line, because they did in this situation, I think they tried to press out to maybe make sure that Josie Altidore was offside in case Toronto countered.
Well, also Chad Marshall had to step to Giovinco,
but that's the point, is that then when you are trying to play that line and you have to have one of your center backs step who's already not the most fleet of foot, you're pulling that player out of position. And that's essentially exactly what Giovinco does, is when Marshall steps, he recognizes that player's come forward, there's two players wide, Josie Altidore's making that run, I'm just going to play it right behind Chad Marshall, Josie Altidore is in on goal.
1-0 Toronto, and they celebrate hard, right? They celebrate hard.
Yeah, that felt like a couple months of frustration being vented all at once. Yeah.
Oh, and then obviously they score late in the game to sort of really seal the deal, right? It's Vasquez, I think, in the end, scores with his knee.
Yes. Yeah. And then Taylor Twellman went off on his 30-second monologue about the glory of Victor Vasquez.
Yeah, he thinks there's a book that can be written about this season, right?
A chapter. Oh, yes, excuse me. Yes, there's a book written about the season. Victor Vasquez gets a chapter.
It's a decent metaphor.
Sure.
Let him have it.
Okay.
Let him have it.
Well, I think it was only just that, I get why you're praising him. I get that it was about returning from an injury that made it seem like he might have to retire.
Yeah.
It's just sort of and go ahead, praise, but it was just still sort of he didn't just score a flying volley from 30 yards out. It came off his knee, and I'm not sure he knew what was happening.
But here's the thing. What if that was the injured knee? I don't know which knee Vasquez injured, but if he actually scored with the injured knee, that's a perfect bow on the story.
I guess
right?
so, but it's just...
They should let me write that chapter.
It's just still good work from him to be... But that even is the narrative for Victor Vasquez. It's right place, right time, because he made that effort. He put in that work to be in the exact right position to capitalize on an opportunity. That's the story of Victor Vasquez. Not this heroic struggle back, and he's got a tattoo that we need to talk about.
Well, congratulations to Toronto FC for winning MLS Cup.
And the treble, yeah?
And the treble, yeah, because they won the Supporters' Shield and they did not win the US Open Cup. They won the Canadian Cup.
That they did.
They did. So, yeah, congrats to TFC. Also this weekend, second leg of the Liga MX Apertura 2017 final.
Correct.
Yeah? Oh, you looked at the board to check.
I did.
Yeah? You noticed I didn't.
Yeah, well,
I knew.
Yeah.
We were pulling for Jonathan Gonzalez and Monterrey. They went into the second leg hosting it. It was 1-1. They score in the first 2 minutes. I think Pabon scores after Funes Mori chests it down to him from a long ball. It all looks set up. They lose 2-1. It finishes 2-1 to Tigres. Tigres are the Liga MX Apertura champions. Monterrey and Jonathan Gonzalez are not. And it is, I think, a little bit Jonathan Gonzalez's fault.
I think the first goal certainly is. Yeah, he's doing his usual job, and I think he did a very good job for most of the game. He played 80, subbed out near the end when Monterrey were chasing a winner.
Yeah, for Benitez,
pulled off their defensive midfielder to put on an attacker. But for the
Who wins the penalty, by the way?
He did.
We'll get to that later.
Oh, boy. Yeah. But Gonzalez, for the opener, is tracking his man. It's Vargas, the Chilean striker.
Eduardo Vargas.
And Gonzalez really... I don't think there's any other excuse or any other explanation other than he's ball watching. The ball goes out to not the channel, but just right near the 18, and he's focused on that. He drifts away from Vargas a little bit. Vargas stays at the top of the 18. Ball comes right back across, and you can see Gonzalez as soon as that ball's about to be played. Sort of you just see the back of his head, but just his entire way his body reacts. It's oh no, and then but
I was supposed to be with him.
Right? And then he can't close Vargas in time. Vargas hits it one time, back of the net.
Once again, he's 18. This is all part of being slightly inexperienced. Is that you see him? He runs with Vargas and he checks, right? He looks over his shoulder and makes sure he's still got him. But then Vargas's run sort of diverges from him. It takes a fork in the road, essentially. And Gonzalez, I think, just assumes that Vargas is going to keep making that run alongside him.
Yeah.
That's how he loses him. It's only a few steps, but it's all the difference, right? Because that's how Vargas has the space to shoot.
One of the things that I've enjoyed the most, in doing this show over the last few years, is slowly realizing that, I guess I've always had this idea that, forwards had this killer instinct and it was all about, finding a way to make something happen. And defenders, it was all about reacting and trying to adjust to what the striker is doing. And I've realized that it's kind of the opposite in a lot of ways, that it's the striker who's kind of evaluating what the defenders are doing and probing for weaknesses and reacting to it. Yeah. And in this situation, I think you're absolutely right. It's Vargas maybe recognizing, he's drifting a little bit. I'm going to hold off and pull out and make it seem like I'm not involved anymore.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to create space to capitalize upon. It's really smart work from him.
It's quite the shot from Vargas as well.
That it is.
To make it 1-1. To make it 2-1. Yeah. It looks like it's Jonathan Gonzalez's fault when you watch the replay. It's not, right? It's Nico Sanchez's fault, and Gonzalez is essentially trying to fill in for him.
We need a phrase for this, but it's the thing. I feel like I'm Stefan here. It's the thing where it's basically the situation when the player who scores, say it's I'm marking a player, they get away from me, you're marking your own player, but when my mark scores the goal, he's next to you.
Yeah.
The camera makes it seem like it's your fault just because, this guy just scored and Daryl didn't do anything to mark him. What's Daryl Grove's problem? And then you watch the replay and it's me just twiddling my thumbs and not paying attention. And that's what happens here, basically. I think, again, Gonzalez is marking Vargas and sticks with him. But Yeah, it's that late run into the box. It's the Man City run at like full speed. It's just difficult to deal with. And I think Gonzalez kind of does what he can, but I also think he doesn't know the eventual goal scorer is making that run.
Yep. Messi is the goal scorer.
Yeah, but I think Gonzalez is trying to step at the last second just to think like,
because Sanchez has lost him.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah, so he's trying to step across to try and do his job.
But I think Sanchez has lost him so much, and that run comes from so out of nowhere for Gonzalez, that I genuinely think he sees the ball coming and thinks, oh, it's coming right at me. I'll step to win that header so I don't pull a Romelu Lukaku. He probably didn't think that, but I'm going with that. And like then just suddenly there's another player there, and it's in the back of the net. And I think, yeah, it wasn't even that he was like, oh, I'll try to react to this run late. It was just sort of like, oh, the ball's coming, and had no idea that other player was coming.
Yeah, do something.
Yep.
Okay, so Gonzalez, he started a couple of counterattacks as well.
He did.
Like, it was the normal Jonathan Gonzalez, like...
He broke up play, he won the ball
good
back.
Break up play, good tackle, away we go. Unfortunately, for Monterrey, the guy that comes on, Benitez, subs in for Jonathan Gonzalez, wins a penalty kick. I'm not sure how legitimately.
I'm going to say this is a ball don't lie situation.
Because then Hurtado steps up and misses. It's like high and wide, right? It's both.
Yes.
He gets all kinds of angles wrong.
Whatever confidence Wayne Rooney had, Hurtado had the opposite.
You think Rooney stole it?
Yeah.
He stole all the penalty confidence from around the globe for the rest of the day.
Yep. And Hurtado didn't even have the foresight to do the looking at the ground and being like, oh, it slipped. The ground is bad. He was just sort of like, oh no, I know what I've done.
The only weird thing I noticed about Hurtado's run-up was, I know the goalkeeper was trying to do a lot of moves and throw him off. And so Hurtado's strategy was, and I get you have to have a strategy when the keeper's doing that stuff. You can stare him down or you can go talk to someone else or whatever. Hurtado's strategy was to look off and to the left.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that was a good idea. Because then if anything, he kind of over-calibrates to the right based on where the ball goes.
My amateur psychology, the way I've always...
My favourite kind.
So this is whenever I've been in goal for penalties, either just when we're goofing around or in actual games, my gut thing to do is just to look at whatever the taker looks at first. If they look to the right or the left of the goal, I've decided that's where they're going.
Because they'll just look at that first and then pretend it's everything else, but it's actually the first thing.
And so as soon as I see the player look at one part of the goal, which is why sometimes players do not look at the goal.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, Tigres' goalkeeper, whose name I've forgotten, so I apologize there.
Same.
He's basically cheating to his right and just giving the entire left side of the goal. And my amateur psychology here is that Hurtado was going to aim for that side of the goal, and now is keenly aware that he is showing me that this side of the goal is wide open. Why don't you shoot there? I really don't want to shoot there now, but I'm going to anyway. And I think there's just that
So I'm going to hit it harder.
It's the old saying that if you're thinking on the day of your wedding is, if this doesn't work out, I can get divorced. You're getting divorced. And I feel like if your run up as you're taking the penalty, if the run up is, I hope this is the right decision, you're going to miss the penalty.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens.
I mean, to be fair, he was looking...
And then Hurtado got divorced.
He was looking away from the goal.
Yeah.
And then he put it away from the goal.
Yeah,
so exactly. It was consistent.
Yeah, okay. That works, yeah.
So I guess congratulations to Tigres.
Yep.
But I want to say thumbs down to US Soccer for not having anyone at the game to connect with Jonathan Gonzalez.
So
the story about Gonzalez possibly playing for Mexico is rumbling on and on and on.
It is. And I guess, forgive me, I can't remember the Twitter account who translated it, but I guess he did an interview in which he said that Jonathan Gonzalez said he had not been contacted by U.S. Soccer. Now, I don't know if that's ever. I'm assuming it isn't, because I'm assuming at some point somebody talked to him.
There was talk of him being called up for the Portugal friendly in November, and Monterrey said, can you please not, because we've got these two games around that date.
Yeah.
So you assume that someone has talked to him. I mean, he's played for the U20 team, right? So he has had contact.
That's my point.
With US Soccer.
Yeah.
So
and Arena, I think, alluded to the idea that there had been conversations about him getting called up.
Yeah. So maybe he just meant this week.
He might have, but I'm also terrified that U.S. Soccer is that dysfunctional that they talked to Monterrey, and Monterrey were like, well, can you not call him because we need him? And U.S. Soccer were like, yeah, sure. But he's on our radar, and they were like, okay. And no one ever thought to tell Jonathan Gonzalez that.
And then
that makes me nervous.
Then Monterrey called Juan Carlos Osorio.
Yeah. But also, there is also a chance that it was a translated interview in which he said, yeah, they haven't talked to me lately, or they haven't talked to me since that Portugal game.
But here's what should be happening.
Somebody should be there?
Of Jonathan Gonzalez's quality. Yeah. I think, okay, so I understand that the US Soccer presidency is now very much up in the air because it's definitely not going to be the current guy who's the president. There is no coach, right? So Dave Sarakin could maybe go down to Mexico to watch the Liga MX but he's not the coach long term, so how much value does that have? Tab Ramos is the technical director, the youth technical director, could go down there. It's like someone should go down there, right? Maybe Tab Ramos was the guy. Or there should be we should be sending him a basket, we should be making contact. Just make sure that you stay front of mind for Jonathan Gonzalez.
I mean, Dave Sarakin is...
Send him a jersey.
He is the coach right now. He is going to be the coach in January for the January friendly against Bosnia. I'm just saying, send that guy down there. He knows what he is. He can't say, I'm going to be here forever.
I guess it would be news if he was there.
Well,
right?
One person who was there was Juan Carlos Osorio.
That's why we're...
That's what I don't love.
Okay, but was Osorio there just because it's the Liga MX final and he's the Mexican national team coach?
Things can be two things. I genuinely believe that he was probably there, yes, because it's the Liga MX final, but also because, there's this defensive midfielder who's leaning towards playing for the United States, who said he wants to, but is still eligible. You need a defensive midfielder by all accounts. That is Jonathan Gonzalez fits he is a square-shaped hole in a square-shaped spot for Mexico's World Cup roster.
That's true.
Yeah. And that makes me concerned.
Yeah, okay, I guess we'll just keep watching that story and hope that transfer to Europe comes pretty fast with some American teammates.
I hate this so much. I hate that there's no competitive game for the U.S. anytime soon, so that can just be dealt with. Because it is going to be a thing that looms over. Actually, I guess it won't be, because as long as he doesn't accept a call-up, as long as he's not playing for Mexico in the World Cup, we know that he has made his decision.
Right.
And if he is, then he's also made his decision. Either way,
that is
we'll know that.
True.
Yeah.
Quick mention for another American teenager, Christian Pulisic, featured in a Dortmund defeat. Dortmund lost 2-1 at home to Werder Bremen. Pulisic, from what I saw, I only saw very, very brief highlights, did kind of well. He put a nice cross in for what could have been the equaliser. Really good chip to the far post. Kagawa definitely should have scored, put it over the bar. But they lose 2-1. Peter Bosz loses his job. Peter Bosz is no longer the boss in Dortmund. He's a goner.
Exit one Peter, enter another Peter.
Yeah.
Peter Stoger is how I'm going to pronounce it till I hear otherwise.
I didn't know about it. You told me the info on Peter Stoger.
Yeah, he was fired by Cologne in early December of this year, so not great.
It's last week, right?
Yeah, but the kind of explainer that I read was essentially that he's been there for 4 years at Cologne, or had been there for 4 years, got them promoted from Bundesliga 2 to the Bundesliga, and then last season Cologne finished 5th, qualified for Europe, so not bad for a coach who kind of came from relative obscurity to bring a team to European qualification.
So that's Pulisic's new boss.
Sounds vaguely similar to what Jurgen Klopp did with Mainz, where he kind of brought them up, got them playing really well, got the Dortmund job. Here we are.
So I think we're at a point where we don't have to worry about Christian Pulisic's job security in a weird way. I feel like anyone taking over that Dortmund team now knows very much that Christian Pulisic is, basically a first-team player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because I think that's the thing, right, is that sometimes
Unless he says, okay, we're going with 5 central defensive midfielders, no wingers, no attacking players.
Let's hope not.
Otherwise, Pulisic should be fine. His position shouldn't be changed. He said, knocking onward.
Because it's not a situation in which it's a young player who's kind of on the periphery but has maybe proven himself in a couple games. New manager comes in and says, no, I've got to get the results. I don't have the luxury of playing the kids. Pulisic is kind of, while still being a kid, is also a veteran for Dortmund at this point.
He's getting there, right? He's certainly getting there. All right, so speaking of kids, shall we close the show with the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network reports?
I suppose we shall.
All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reports to share. I see the first one, Taylor, starts in Germany.
Yep. Dylan Veach scouting Kai Havertz, 18-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Another league game, another full 90 for Kai. That makes 5 straight. That also makes 10 straight matches without a loss for Leverkusen as they handed Stuttgart their first home loss of 2017, winning 2-0. Leverkusen played an aggressive 4-3-3. Kai started on the left wing and scored his first goal of the season, knocking home a nice goal from a well-spotted pass from Leon Bailey.
Bailey also in the Scouting Network, but we're not getting any reports. Just putting that out there.
It's a double from Dylan. Kai seems to have cemented his place as a consistent starter, a la Christian Pulisic, for a team that will likely challenge for a Champions League spot. Maybe not a la Christian Pulisic, especially given that Bayer Leverkusen are currently 4th in the Bundesliga.
John Fernandez is scouting Borja Mayoral, the 20-year-old Spanish striker for Real Madrid. In an effort to shorten his reports, John sent us a haiku. Okay, here's the haiku about Borja Mayoral. Champions League time. Borja started, full 90, scored Madrid's first goal.
That's good work, John.
Great. I love a haiku.
That's good work.
Yeah. It's a good rhythm for the Scouting Network report.
I think so.
Yeah.
Todd Brandon scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, 19-year-old American defender on loan at Sheffield United from Tottenham. The rumor mill claims that CCV could be recalled by Spurs in the January transfer window, so Todd is going to assume that CCV not playing in the recent 2-1 loss to Bristol City is an attempt by the Blades to begin life without him. CCV has been a consistent starter for Sheffield, who are currently 6th in the Championship despite not winning in their last 5 matches. That said, I think one of the reasons why CCV did not start in this game is a reason that you're about to read.
Will Herson is scouting Ryan Sessegnon, the 17-year-old English left-back / left-winger for Fulham.
Yep.
I've just spotted my name in this report. Okay. Will says, after being publicly mistaken for twin brother Stephen by Daryl Grove, never heard of him, young Ryan started on the left wing in a 4-5-1 against Sheffield United and scored a hat-trick, thereby helping scout Will Herson celebrate his 33rd birthday. Happy birthday, Will. Cess and Liverpool loanee Shai Ojo tore the Sheffield defence apart, combining for all 5 goals. They then tracked mud into defender Cameron Carter-Vickers' house, ate all his food, kissed his girlfriend, and stole the bicycle from his garden. In the game since, Cess has been shifted back to defence since Tim Ream is injured. Rafa Suarez is back in the U23s, and Marcelo Diallo is useless. It's harsh.
Yep.
The Daily Mail and the Telegraph are running more Cess to Tottenham rumours, and Ryan, not Stephen, is just the type of player Pochettino will be asking Santa for.
Excellent report there. And yeah, I do wonder if maybe CCV's involvement in that 5-1 thrashing is why he was sitting on the bench against Bristol City.
So the 4-5-1 is also a 5-1 win.
Yes.
Yes, I think I said both of those at once and kind of ruined the scouting report. I apologise. So on the left wing in a 4-5-1 in a 5-1 win over Sheffield United.
Yeah.
There we go.
Numbers are hard. It's fine. Sam Hurd scouting Rodrigo Betancourt, 20-year-old, I'm sure that's how you pronounce that one, 20-year-old Uruguayan defensive midfielder for Juventus. Betancourt came on for the last 5 minutes plus stoppage time of Juve's 0-0 draw with Inter. He defended well and worked box-to-box for the short time he was on the pitch. Juve are currently working with his old club, Boca Juniors, to renegotiate a clause that would see Boca receive 50% of any sales of Betancourt. Juve are hoping to rid themselves of what they consider a cumbersome contractual clause, despite having no plans to move the youngster anytime soon. Sure.
So many sell-on debates and discussions in Serie A.
Yeah.
There's always a thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're not planning on it, but that definitely feels like they know the way this tends to go, and so they're sort of like, yeah, we want 100% of that.
All the pie, please.
Yeah.
Ed De Horatius is scouting Federico Bernardeschi, the 23-year-old Italian attacking midfielder for Juventus.
Yeah.
You stockpile those players, Juventus. Ed says Fede is back from injury and was super sub-ish in Juve's 2-0 win over Olympiacos in the Champions League. He replaced Cuadrado late in the game and twice collected the ball on the right wing, cutting inside inverted winger style and firing. A diving save from the Olympiacos goalie saved the first one, but he couldn't stop the second. Goal for Fede.
He did not play in that 0-0 draw with Inter Milan, though, so I'm sure he'll still be pleased with his goal in the Champions League. That's probably enough for now.
I'd be pleased with the goal in the Champions League. Thank you to Dylan, John, Todd, Will, Sam and Ed for today's scouting reports. If you join the Scout Network, you'd like your scout, you're getting impatient, please email me this week, Daryl, Daryl, like the movie about the robot, at totalsoccershow.com. Say itchy feet in the subject line, so tell me you're waiting for your player. I'll get him to you. You'll give me a quizzical look.
Movie about a robot?
Have you not seen that movie?
Daryl?
Yeah, there's a movie in the late 80s, early 90s.
Shopping Mall? Is it Shopping Mall? Is that what you're talking about?
Mall?
Yeah, Shopping Mall. Where
Shopping
killer
mall.
robots protect it's robots protect a shopping mall.
No.
But then they get hit by lightning and become evil.
It's more like a cute movie about a kid, but he's a robot.
All right.
You really haven't seen this movie?
No.
Okay, so
I didn't even know this was a movie. I feel like you're making it up.
Daryl stood for Data Analyzing Robot Youth Lifeform. This movie...
That seems...
I definitely didn't make this up. This movie exists.
Yeah, that seems like a movie created entirely by cocaine. But sure. Sure.
I might rewatch it and see if it's actually any good.
I feel like the director's brother was named Daryl, and he was like, gotta find a way to make this work.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
All right. If you'd like to join the Scout Network, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. But for now, I'll say Taylor Rockwell. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me about all the soccer today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back on Tuesday with more Total Soccer Show.
You gotta slice it.